Hi, my name's Liz Kuzmas. I'm a senior analyst with the Wealth Advisory Services team at TD Bank with the TD Wealth Division. And my team works with all the advisors across Canada, and we answer questions regarding financial planning. So we talk about estate planning, tax management, retirement planning, saving for particular goals, and education funding. So we hear all kinds of interesting things that go on in Canada. And what I'd like to do is share some things that I hope help you as you're embarking now on the next phase of your lives and making plans. So you've achieved your education goals, you've completed your education. Now you're on the next leg. So you're looking for, the job that you want, and in investing in your education, what I hope that I can leave you with tonight are some good ideas on next points or starting points on now saving for your future. So I'm always amazed at all the questions I get. I was at a dinner a couple of weeks ago and someone turned to me and said, how much money do I need in retirement? So I'm thinking, wow, it's Friday night, I'm having dinner, I'm relaxing. But to that person, that was important. And they didn't want to give me a lot of personal details, which I can appreciate. So we just talked, very high level, like what should I be thinking about? So I said, well, rule of thumb, if you're thinking about how much money you need in retirement, so for those of you that are not in my age group, it's not top of mind, but I'm going to share a couple of reasons why you should be thinking about it now that you're young and so that you can benefit when you do get older. So the answer that I gave was, you need, as a rule of thumb, 70% in retirement of your income before retirement. So as you're working and earning, start thinking about things like that. Then there's my 12-year-old nephew who wants to be a millionaire. And then there's a recent graduate in our family from university who started talking about, I want to, get a down payment for a condo. So, Auntie, how do I do that? So we started talking about what I've got here, RSPs, TFSAs. What are those? How do they work? How much money do I have to put in there? Well, over 2 years, this guy's got about $25,000 socked away in his TFSA. And I thought that was pretty good because he doesn't have a high earning job, but he started doing things that, we talked about, like talking about his cash flow, talking about budgeting, talking about what he can save. But I think really what's important is he had a goal, and that's really what I want you to start thinking about. So in relating financial planning to yourself, think about what it means to your life now and think about what it means in the future. So we all have goals, we all have dreams. They're very personal, they're built on our beliefs, on our values. We might have some of the same goals, we might have very different goals. So I just wanted to give you a couple of ideas here. I mentioned the down payment for the condo, they're saving for the future. What does that mean? Do you want to start thinking about retirement? Is it too early? I don't know that it's too early, but it may not be on the top of your list. So start thinking about what it is you want to do. And it's not only about saving. I really think money is to have fun with too. So I really like it when clients say, I want to buy a boat, or I want to travel, or take my family on this dream cruise that we've been thinking about for years. So I think there's a balance we have to think about when it comes to money. So I put a couple of ideas here for you. And as you go through your life stage, things are going to change. They may move higher on the list. They may move lower on the list. And Elaine talked about transition. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things that Canadians think about. We read those studies that say Canadians that don't have money don't sleep at night because they don't have money. Canadians have money, they can't sleep at night because they have money. So, it's finding, again, that balance and trying to figure out what is it that I need to make me feel comfortable. But one thing a lot of Canadians think about is, and maybe I could use the word worry, is outliving their money. So think about, how long we live. We read the statistics. Canadian men live to about 78 years of age, Canadian women to about 82 years of age. People are living longer. I read the other day, a baby born today can expect to live 120 years, which might sound a bit ridiculous. I think of my great-grandfather, he was 104, and this week my sister-in-law's grandmother in Windsor celebrating her 103rd birthday. So we have to think about these things. I like this phrase, financial freedom. What does it mean? It's your definition. What might be financial freedom for me might have a different meaning for you. But I really want you to think about setting goals. So again, I go back to Kevin Jr., the nephew in my family, who's thinking about that condo payment. There's a goal. What's the timeline? He said, you know, in the next 2 to 3 years, I want to have something. So I think you need those parameters to get started. So I think being clear is really important. I'm going to talk about debt and what's happening in Canada because we hear that D word a lot globally, but there's good debt, so I don't look at debt necessarily as always bad, and I'll talk a bit about that. Also creating, your financial plan is also about getting your data. So all those documents that you need, your notice of assessment when you're filing your tax return. Any income statements, you have bills. So it's organizing yourself, and I'll give you some ideas as to what the benefits would be to doing that. And creating action items. So, if I do have this goal, I want this down payment, how am I going to do that? How much am I going to save, over what time, to what, and have that sort of end goal to help you. And then review your plan regularly. So whether you're 23 or 53, it's really important to review things at least annually to see if you're on track, and then make changes if you have to. So one of the starting points, I think, is understanding your cash flow. How much money do you have? I know when we talk to clients, we don't want to say save money if they don't have the cash flow to do that. So we might have to take a step back first and really analyze what kind of cash flow do they have. So we're talking about budgeting. And by budgeting, so I often ask people, how much do you spend every month? And some people tell us to the, nth degree. Here's the spreadsheet. Think of, very analytical personalities. I know exactly what I spend, but a lot of people don't. And then when they sit down and they use some kind of a tool, whether you like paper-based, some of us like to write things out. So there are, templates you can use, and you put your expenses down. I've itemized them in groups. So those things we have to spend money on. So, there's the mortgage, there's rent, there's food. That's a necessity. It's not negotiable. So those are things we have to spend money on. How do I get to work? Am I taking the TTC? So I have to spend money. Then there are those things we call like life planning expenses. So I don't have to spend them, but I want to. So, it was Black Friday last. I won't ask you to raise your hands, but, I went out, did some Christmas shopping. So did I buy something for myself? Lo and behold, I did. Didn't plan to. But there's, one of those things we want to spend. But, maybe I spend this month, I don't spend next month. So we have to assess, where does the money go? What sort of things am I purchasing? So that's the outflow. That's where money's going in. But what's coming in? So what kind of income are you getting? Your job, part-time job. My brother's neighbor's son wants to buy a house. He's been wanting to since he was 19. He's 25. He bought it. And when you hear of how he did that, he's buying and selling things. I mean, it's all legal and above board, but it's really interesting when I hear, what people are doing to raise money. So it doesn't, it's not always maybe the conventional, he does have a job, but he's also looking at different ways of raising money. So, it's that monthly income. It's a simple formula. What's coming in minus what's going out. That's what I have at the end of the day. And so it's starting with the cash flow. There is actually an online cash flow tool that you can use. So I did include the link in the presentation for you. It's on the Canada Trust, TD Canada Trust website. I just gave you a screenshot here, but you can go through like all the different areas and what applies to me and plug your numbers in, and then at the end of it you get a report. And it gives you sort of that number. And I think it's really interesting to people when they say, do I really spend that much money on that? And it's kind of eye-opening. So what was it that you could save? The average person spends $7.50 on lunch every day. So I'm not saying cut your coffee out. For me, that's not a negotiable thing. But, maybe not the $7.50 for lunch every day. Maybe there are things you can find that help you save. Okay, so it's really starting with a very basic thing, but a very important thing. So once you've got an understanding of the money that you have to work with, the next thing is, think of your goals. What's important to you? And then start setting that timeline. So I put a couple of things here. For my 12-year-old nephew, it's about hoarding money. It's about saving. So he likes to buy his toys, but he's really happy. I wasn't like that when I was 12, and I work for a bank, so I find it very funny thinking about what he might do in the future. So he's really interested in saving money. For other people, it is about buying something. So again, it's very personal, whether it's that condo, whether it's a vacation you want to go on. You feel a sense of satisfaction. So it is about setting the goal. I did mention debt. It's something we've heard almost daily in the news since 2008 globally, and then we hear different things happening. I do think there's good debt when we talk about where Canadians are acquiring debt or assuming it. It is mostly in mortgages. This is where we tend to see a lot of the debt accumulated, and I don't think that's a bad thing because you can sell your house. So you can sell your property at a future date and get some money for it. But when we look at other things where Canadians are actually spending, it is on credit card debt. And it also is in what we call installment loans. So, when you watch TV and you see like the Brick or Leon's and they say you can buy this dining room set or living room set with no money down and pay it over time, that's an installment loan. So you're not paying it immediately, you may be paying it over a year, 2 years, or so on, or even a car payment over 4 years or 8 years. So when we look at Canada and we look at our neighbors, the US was actually ahead of us in their debt levels until very recently. Now we're ahead of the Americans. So that means if we look at 34 years ago, if we go to 1980, we had about a 66% disposable income debt level. So that means we were ahead of the game. But now we're at 150%. That means for every dollar of earned income, we're in debt 50 cents over that. So yeah, okay, so that's not great. Something to think about. But then again, good debt, bad debt. Other things to think about is there are two debt demographics in Canada that are, I think, really important to think about. They're on opposite ends of the life cycle. So young people, such as yourselves, we read the statistics, 30% of postgrads say that they've accumulated more debt than they thought, and 40% say that they struggle to pay it off. So again, it's trying to establish that cash flow, trying to establish, how do I pay down my debt? Is that my goal? How do I do this? What's my timeline? We see seniors are actually bringing debt into retirement. So think about that, mortgages and for other reasons. So right now, healthcare is probably one of the biggest expenditures that a lot of Canadians report where their money's going to in retirement. But they're also saying that 1 in 4 is carrying a mortgage in the retirement period. So I just wanted you to think about that because you're quite far away from that. But having said that, houses have grown in value 52% from 2005 to 2012. That's a lot more than investments. It's a lot more than pensions. So there are some benefits there. And the average Canadian expects to be mortgage-free at 57, and that varies across the country. So the credit card and installment loan. So our CEO at TD recently retired, Ed Clark, prior to our current CEO, I should say, and he was in the press saying that he's worried that Canadians are borrowing too much and what the impact that is long-term on the economy. Because if we get hit with another credit crunch, that could really be serious for us. So, again, it's about balancing things. So I'm not going to go too much into this, kind of depressing. So we'll move on. But how are Canadians tackling debt? Surprisingly, some Canadians never plan to pay it off. I don't have a statistic on that, but they are out there. So they say, let my estate pay for it. Others are looking for help. They're going to agencies that help them with credit counseling. Some are actually taking equity out of their existing homes and getting a second mortgage or home equity loan. Other people are downsizing or they're renting out part of their property. And a lot of first-time property owners are actually renting out part of their home. And that really helps them pay their mortgage. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, and the link is in the presentation for you, has a website where you can go in and actually put in your debt and do different scenarios. So if you had like a credit card debt, you could go in and say, what if I paid $50 more a month or $25 more a month? What is the impact that that would make on my debt? And if you go to that site, you'll actually be able to print out various scenarios. So the one that I chose is just by bumping up the payments $50 a month, it actually shortened the timeline from 19 years for what they're carrying to 6 years. And then bumping it up, I think it was about $120, it took it right down to 3 years. So, I think it's worth looking at to see how do I actually shorten my timeline. So some of the things you can do when you are trying to pay off debt is prioritize. So if you have more than one kind, put the one that you really want to pay off at the top of your list. Take 10% of your cash flow, direct it to that, pay it down until it's gone, and then move the next one up if you're dealing with more than one. So there are different things that you can do to pay that down. And I do like using the cash flow calculator, so I did give you the one for TD Canada Trust and then the other one for the Finance Consumer Agency of Canada. Other things that you might, so retirement may be far away. I'm just going to go ahead a little bit, but it's surprising. I read a statistic yesterday, I think it was on the subway, and I saw something up in one of the stations that said 11 million Canadians don't have a pension. So that's really something to think about, like how do I create my financial security? So in life transitions, we know that the average Canadian widow is 56 years old. We know that people are living longer and the divorce rate's over 40%. So people are going through transitions. I see your faces, sorry, they're depressing statistics, but they're real. So one of the things you want to think about is how do I create these buffers, in my financial plan? So there are two ways you can save. The retirement savings plan, or RSP, does allow you to save money. There's a maximum. You can only save 18% of your earned income, and then it's capped at $24,270 for 2014. If I take money out of my RSP, it is taxed. So it's not tax-free. It just means when I take it out, it's going to be taxed. So the tax is deferred. It's sort of pushed along. The idea is that it's there for your retirement. You do have to start withdrawing when you're 71. So there is a rule about that. And you can also split with your spouse. So when one person's earning more money, they can contribute to their spouse's RSP if they're earning less, and that sort of brings up their income in the retirement period. And there is creditor protection as long as you don't declare bankruptcy in terms of the last 12 months that you've contributed. I think the one that you should probably be thinking about more is the TFSA, because you can put money in, you can put $5,500 a year, right now that's our limit, and then you can take it out. You're not taxed on it, it's tax-free, and then you can put it back in. So I think it's a great thing for you to consider. I just wanted to show you, actually I'm going to show you this slide. So we've got people that start saving early. So we're showing that in the light blue column, it's the early starter. So the person's 23, they're putting in $2,000 a year for 40 years and then they stop. But the red one, the person's contributing at 33 and continuing until they're 65. So what it's saying is the earlier you start, the less you actually have to contribute to get more. So for you, putting $1,000 or $2,000 away a year, if you can, may not be a bad idea. As I said, the TFSA is there for you to use whenever you want it. There are no rules around what you can use it for. It's not retirement specific. And then this just shows, because it is tax-free, that means it's a great place to invest and start building your nest egg. So in terms of what kind of investor you are, we hear people say, I don't want to lose my money. There are people that say, I can take risk. I need it in the next year. And some people say, I don't need it for the next 10 years. So as you're learning more about investing, there are a lot of choices. There are a lot of terms here that I don't have time to go into. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is explore and learn. I can suggest to you, I liked how I heard today, go to seminars, go to workshops, read, talk to people that have done well. I learn from our clients. I hear the most amazing stories and I think, oh my gosh, like I would never have thought, you could be successful saving $25, $50 a week for, and it builds and it builds and it builds. So I think learning from other people is great, and, learning from older people that have done well. But really set a goal. I think if you can relate it to yourself, you've done it with your school, I think now you can do it with your investing, and it's so rewarding when you reach your goals and you're able to do something for yourself. And that's really what I wanted to share with you tonight. So thank you very much for your time. And thank you. Sure.
Bring us a question.
Yeah.
Or two if it's fast.
Yeah.
What percentage of your income should you attribute to your rent or mortgage? What's the rule of thumb?
Well, there's like a debt equity ratio. It's hard to say. I mean, you know, if you're going 30-40% of your income, you're really getting to that sort of cusp. Because you also want to have an emergency fund. So I think a good thing to try and do is have 3 months of what you really need sort of on the side for the rainy day. Yeah.
Wish I'd known that as a kid. Any other questions, guys? Okay. Super. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Really.